I'm Lydia Wilson, a journalist for New Lines magazine and the presenter of the BBC series The Secret History of Writing. I'm sitting with my friend James Montgomery, the Sir Thomas Adams's Professor of Arabic at the University of Cambridge and Fellow of the British Academy. This is one of 4 episodes in a series considering authors, texts and ideas from the rich heritage of classical Arabic literature.
A reading from Ikhwan as-Safa, Risala 22, on the classes of animals, their wondrous physiques and unusual behaviour. An orator, one of the descendants of Al-Abbas, stood up and delivered this speech from the pulpit. Praise God, Lord of the worlds, goal of those who are God-conscious, enemy only of those who do wrong. God bless our Master Muhammad, last of the prophets, Imam of his messengers, dispenser of intercession on Judgment Day. Praise God who created man from water, who created his wife from him, and spread their seed, men and women, far and wide, honouring their descendants, carrying them by land and sea, and nourishing them with good things. As Almighty God says, He created cattle for you, for they give warmth and many benefits. You can eat of them. They give you joy when you drive them to pasture and lead them home at the end of the day. They carry heavy loads for you to lands you would struggle and suffer to reach. The Almighty also says, you are carried on them and on ships. And some cattle are beasts of burden, some are for slaughter. Praised be God who says, horses, mules, and donkeys for you to ride and take pride in. There are many verses in the Quran, the Torah, and the Gospels that show that animals were created for us and on account of us. They are our slaves, we their masters. I ask God's forgiveness for us all.
The Ikhwan as-Safa, or Brethren of Purity, are shadowy figures in history, probably working in the late 10th or early 11th centuries of the Common Era, known only by the impressive body of work they left behind. In fact, we don't even know if they are a group at all. This could be the work of one prolific thinker, or it could have been different thinkers over time rather than a coherent group working together. We don't know their religious affiliations, nor their philosophical school, bar what can be gleaned from the writings we have under their collective name. These are the 51 or perhaps 52 letters they left behind, known collectively as the Risalat, simply the Arabic for letters. These sketch out a curriculum of study that aim to give a comprehensive overview of all known subjects of the day. Their pedagogical aim is evident in the structure of each letter too. Each begins with a general statement before expounding the topic in greater length and ending with the payoff, the real, that is to say, hidden or esoteric meaning of the Risala. This layered approach to knowledge and knowledge acquisition has led to all sorts of debates in the subsequent 1,000 years of scholarship about what they really thought, some of which we will try and cover today. Does that sketch out the terrain okay?
Perfectly.
What did I miss?
Perfectly. I did a little bit of checking, and according to Carmela Baffioni, the Italian scholar who's devoted her whole life to studying the Brethren of Purity, she says that there are 52 epistles.
Right.
And the 2 additional epistles, the comprehensive epistle and the super comprehensive epistle.
Yeah.
So we're probably talking about a corpus of 54
So
epistles.
the 52 are the bulk of the content, let's say.
Yes.
That satisfies me because of 52 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
If you've got a 7-day week. But then I thought, had I been tempted into a numerological
Yes.
analysis of our
Yeah.
subject, which maybe is appropriate.
No, 7 is a very important number for the brethren, and 5 and 2 make 7. So, but-
We're already deep into the esoteric nature of
Yes.
the study.
No, numerology is absolutely central to how the brethren looked at the world around them.
It's not just what's been impressed on them. They had their numerological approaches.
Yes, much of it was inherited through the translation into Arabic of the Greek texts that represented the resurgence of Pythagorean theories in late antiquity.
Heavily.
Very heavily. And so one of the issues with the Ikhwan, of course, is the nature. They're so comprehensive and Catholic in their outlook that they draw on such a wide diversity and multiplicity of sources. So on the one hand, we have the influence of Plotinus through the Neoplatonic school of how one interpreted Aristotle through a Platonizing lens. There's Neo-Pythagoreanism, there's Gnosticism, there's Hermeticism, and I could go on and on and on with that.
You haven't touched on Islamic?
No,
Or
the Quran.
Yeah. Well,
So it's really, it's a kind of bewildering array of intellectual confluences that the collection presents us with.
well, we'll dig into that, but shall we just take a step back and ask, if we have no idea who these people are, why do we even call them brethren or brothers or Ikhwan?
Because that's how they refer to themselves.
Ah,
And
so
each,
they signed them.
each epistle is addressed to a brother. And there is a passage in one of the rasa'il where they refer to themselves as the Ikhwan as-Safa wa Khulan al-Wafa, which means the brethren of purity and the companions of faithfulness or fidelity. And this itself seems to be a quotation from an earlier text, which is the work Kalila wa Dimna, Kalila and Dimna, the Tale of the Two Jackals, which was an ethical treatise of how human beings should behave and interact with each other, told through the mouthpiece and of animals. So
Yes.
the Ikhwan as-Safa purposefully seem to allude to their identity through referring to this work.
To that work.
Yes.
Well, I definitely picked up on that when we chose which Risala
Yeah, of course. Yes.
to be looking at today. So should we just dig straight into...
Yeah, of course we can. Yeah, let's
You've
just go
introduced
directly
it
to...
very well by introducing the notion, well, their direct citation of a fable with animals,
Yes.
which goes back a lot further than Kalila wa Dimna. I mean, Kalila wa Dimna itself is a text that comes through from the Indian tradition, right? But translated very famously into the Arabic in the 8th century.
Yes.
Via Persian or no?
Possibly.
Possibly. So much is possible.
That is another rabbit hole that we should save for a later occasion. I think.
Because we're not talking about Kalila wa Dimna today,
Yeah.
but a different animal fable, because we're talking about Risala 22
Yes.
with a fantastic, well, for a start, it's the longest, I think, by some way, of all the Risala in this collection. But it's also got a fantastic name.
Yeah, so it's probably known in English, thanks to Len Goodman and Richard McGregor, who are the translators of the work, as The Case of the Animals versus Man Before the King of the Jinn. And that's a very, very appealing title.
Yeah.
The actual title is perhaps a little bit more humdrum. It is on the various types of animals, the wonders of their physiques, and the marvels of their behaviour.
I think that's more wonderful.
Well, Perhaps, but it's not quite
No.
as the title that Goodman and MacGregor have given the epistle alludes more to a kind of tradition of the Arabian Nights than to the scientific tradition of the Ikhwan, the philosophical tradition of the Ikhwan, of the Brethren.
I guess the division I see there is between the first lot of content in the letter, which is fairly standard for the letters. It's an introduction to the topic, and it's all very factual and informative, pedagogical. And then we have this wonderful fable.
Yes.
So that translation, the Len Goodman and MacGregor one, their title calls on the fable. Yes, and the Arabic calls on the more factual side of it.
It doesn't do the work in injustice,
right?
By any means, it's not misrepresentative. What's really unique, I think, about this work is that the Brethren begin with the lowest of the animals. Now, in order to understand how they're thinking, we have to reconstruct for ourselves how they imagined reality to be constructed. And it was constructed almost like a ladder, perhaps a chain that was vertically suspended, and each link in the chain is connected with the next and with the preceding. So they have just described the world of plants in the previous epistle. And each world, such as of the plants, is itself hierarchically arranged within different types of plants.
Right.
So what they're always at pains to do is to catalogue which plants occupy the lowest rung of the ladder, which the median, and which the highest.
So that attitude to hierarchy.
Yes.
You mentioned so many philosophical currents earlier.
Yes.
Where's that idea coming from? Because there's all sorts of classifications of the natural world, and I'm thinking of Aristotle did something so comprehensive in his approach, but that was all based on division.
Yes.
You know, is it winged or not winged?
Yes.
Oh no, we were talking about plants, but water, not water, whatever.
Yes.
But this is very different from the Aristotelian version. Do we know where the hierarchy is coming from?
I'm not 100% sure, but I can tell you why they are doing that is because when they get to the higher reaches of reality, they want a series of progressions for the human soul to be able to arise. Now, that's where their real attention is fixed.
Right.
Is on the celestial structure of reality, not so much the terrestrial, but they're consistent.
Right. Yeah, they're building that worldview.
Yes. And they pay an awful lot of attention to thresholds. The points of contact between the lower and the higher are very important for them. And so what they say is that the higher level of plants coincides and is a threshold to the lower level of animals. And so it goes up.
Can you almost think about it as a spectrum, that rather than discrete categories of plants and animals, we've got kind of more shading?
No, I think the contact points, the thresholds, are of interest to them, but they want to keep everything very much distinct. So if I think of a spectrum, I think that one can move along the spectrum.
Right.
And there's no blurring for the Brethren. They want these to be very discreet. But the contact points at the threshold are very interesting for them. And it's absolutely central to how we try to understand what they're trying to tell us in this particular epistle. So they begin with the lowest form of the animals.
Yep.
And those are the terrestrial animals, such as worms and snakes that do not raise themselves up above the ground. Then they move on to quadrupeds. And then the next level are bipeds, i.e. the human animal.
Right.
Now, the biped is superior to the quadruped in terms of its physical constitution because it is vertical and its head points up. And the brethren are always thinking about up for them is the prime criterion.
Is that metaphorical for spiritual uprightness?
Metaphorical, I'm not sure is the right word to introduce here because what they're going to challenge us to do in the course of all of these 54 epistles, and especially in this one, is to entertain a both and interpretation of the world that we see.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily metaphorical. It is both real and not real. And by real for them, they mean the invisible world and not the world of reality that we are inhabiting right now. So the way in which they want to do this is to encourage us through following their epistles, through following their thought experiments, is to retrain our brains in such a way that we can entertain these notions and that we don't think in terms of metaphor. We think in terms of externality and interiority, or in Arabic that's zahir, the visible, the seen, the perceptible world, and the batin, the hidden, often translated as the esoteric world. And we could say exoteric, esoteric as the opposition. The real world is the batin, the hidden world. And we have to train our senses and our brain and our cognitive apparatus and everything we bring to it to be able to realize that what we are seeing in the physical world around us is both valid in itself, but also more valid, as it were, when viewed through the invisible world or the esoteric world.
Okay.
Right, so, and what's fascinating as an Arabist is that this is some of the simplest classical Arabic that one can come across.
Right, linguistically speaking.
Yes, so as a teacher, it's fantastic to use with undergraduates because after about 2 or 3 years of studying Arabic, they have enough linguistic knowledge that they're not flummoxed by the odd syntax or whatever. Give them a vocabulary list because some of the terms are a bit unusual. Most undergraduate students, after 4 years of Arabic, could sit down and read one of these treatises. So they use the simplest, most pellucid Arabic possible, and they've set themselves the challenge of conveying this extremely complicated, counterintuitive vision of how things really are through this very transparent medium.
Right.
So they get back to our epistle. Once they've talked about the higher of the animals, that being the threshold to the lower of the humans.
Yes.
There's a very, very brief discussion of the human animal. But then, all of a sudden, the author of the treatise says, we're going to show you what we mean by this through telling you a story. It will be much easier for you to understand.
And they specifically say that to the reader, this will be easier for you.
Yes. And to the student that they are trying to convert and educate and encourage to follow them on this intellectual journey. And they very, very often in their epistles create these thought experiments that are a challenge to us they're almost like the kind of famous pre-Socratic paradoxes, like the liar's paradox, that, can a habitual liar ever tell the truth? That sort of thing. Yeah. And you have to try somehow to wrap your head around it. Now, what fascinates me about that injunction to the reader that we're going to tell you a story and it's going to be much easier for you to understand. Actually, I don't think it is at all easy to understand.
No.
The fable itself, which we'll discuss in a minute, is beautifully constructed. It is very, very clear. It is very straightforward. But the problems that it throws up along the way are anything but easy and straightforward.
Right. So.
So the story that they tell
Yeah.
is the story of how in the past, when God created men and allowed them to inhabit the earth, he put the animal kingdom pretty much in existence to help man deal with the difficulties of existence. So the oxen were there to help them plough the fields because
Right.
it was too labour intensive and so on. But the story continues to say that man then convinced himself that he was the master of the animals and began to abuse and treat the animals cruelly and without any consideration. And the bigger picture that they're drawing there is that is this an act of ingratitude to God for misusing the benefits that
Right.
he has given us? So with this state of affairs, the men, human animals, dominating, abusing, mistreating non-human animals, the story continues to say that once there was a ship that was sailing and it contained merchants from all different nations, and the ship got lost. And it arrived at an island on the equator where all the elements, earth, air, fire and water, and all the humours are in perfect balance. So it's a sort of ideal island
Yes.
that they arrive in.
Yes.
And this island is is inhabited by genies, in Arabic, the jinn. And it's ruled by a king, the king of the jinn, whose name is Biwarasp. And the men are brought before the king of the jinn, and through an interpreter they have a conversation. And one of the animals present at the court, in this case I think it's the mule, steps forward and says, "Oh great king, don't believe a word that these individuals are saying. They have abused us for centuries. They treat us badly. They don't respect us. They ask us to do things without caring for us." The man rejoins with a series of quotations of verses from the Quran, and the king decides that actually this matter needs to be looked into.
Right.
So he invites all the merchants from all the different countries and all the animals to his court and stages a debate between the men and the animals.
And there's already so many influences, right? But I just want to interject by talking about the jinn, because
Yes.
they are in the Quran
Yes.
as a create. They're
They're-
not fabulous.
Yeah, they're one of the three modes of creation:
Yeah.
angels, jinn, and humans.
Right. Angels
Or
from
angels, jinn, and the earth that we inhabit with all of its creatures, not just humans. So humans and animals.
we've got made out of earth, we've got
Yeah.
the angels out of light, and
Yes.
the jinn out of fire.
Yes.
And so they're created beings. They're not. For us, a genie in a story indicates the supernatural. So I just want to say that for the Ikhwan, they were created beings, right?
I'm not going to commit myself
Okay.
on whether the Ikhwan believed, the brethren believed in the actual existence of the jinn. They believed in the actual existence of the angels, because that is the destination of the upper echelon of the human being, is to reach the threshold of the angels.
In this ladder of
Yes, but
Yeah.
the thing to say about the jinn is that there are good jinn who are Muslims, and there are not so good jinn.
yeah,
And the not so good jinn are rebellious, they rebelled against God, and they are often seen as the cause of mischief and misfortune in everyday life.
Yeah.
But Bi Warasp is a good jinn.
Yes.
And he's very Muslim jinn
Yeah.
in that sense. He is a just king in the tradition of old Iranian notions of just kings. He is kind to his population. He rules over a perfectly articulated society. So Bi Warasp was a model ruler in many ways. But the Ikhwan are not so interested in him as a ruler at this, or in rulership in this particular epistle.
He's just the perfect judge, as it were.
Yes.
That's his role.
He's perfect because he embodies justice and he will be fair to both sides.
Okay, so how does this case play out?
Well, after many, many to's and fro's and disagreements and representation from many different nations of humans and many different species of animals, the king, despite the overwhelming evidence that men are as guilty as sin and that they have been blatantly abusing their position over the animals, the king rules in favour of men.
Why?
Perhaps I should locate and read the verdict.
Yeah.
At the end of the debate, the assembled animal delegates and the wise jinn who were observing says, O humans, of the qualities and lives of these persons, inform us of their insights and ways, their virtues and godly doings, if you know aught of these. Enlighten us about them if you can. The whole body fell silent, pondering the question, but no one had an answer. Finally arose a learned, accomplished, worthy, keen, pious and insightful man. Now listen to this. He was Persian by breeding, Arabian by faith, a Hanif by confession. Now a Hanif is a brand of monotheistic faith referred to in the Quran that's very much associated with the Prophet Abraham. Go back to the quote. He was Iraqi in culture, Hebrew in lore, Christian in manner, Damascene in devotion, Greek in science, Indian in discernment, Sufi, i.e. mystical, in intimations, regal in character, masterful in thought, and divine in awareness. So he is in many ways an intimation of the later concept of the perfect man. He combines all of the good, praiseworthy characteristics from all of the traditions that the brethren are drawing on. And he says, Praised be God, Lord of all worlds, destiny of the faithful, and foe to none but the unjust. God bless the seal of prophets, foremost of God's messengers, Muhammad, God's elect, and all his worthy house and good nations. Yes, just majesty and assembled hosts, he began. These saints of God are the flower of creation, the best, the purest, persons of fair and praiseworthy parts, pious deeds, myriad sciences, godly awareness, regal character, just and holy lives, and awesome ways. Fluent tongues weary to name their qualities, and no one has adequately described their inmost core. Many have cited their virtues, and preachers in public assemblies have devoted their lives down through the ages to sermons dilating on their merits and their godly ways, without ever reaching the pith of the matter. And that's a point at which the debate ends. And the author then, it's worth carrying on with what the author himself says. We have now laid out our story as clearly and concisely as possible, and this essay is one of them. God grant you success, dear brothers, in reading and grasping it fully. May he open your hearts, lay wide your breasts, and enlighten your eyes with the inner meaning of these words, and smooth the way for you to put these thoughts into practice, as he has done with his pure, holy, and devoted saints. For he has the power to effect what he will.
And And so, after the huge weight of evidence of the whole fable of all this bad behaviour by men against animals, there's one final bit of evidence that weighs against all the rest, and it's a core, the inner
Yes.
and the inner meaning.
Yes.
That's the crux of it.
Yes.
And was it designed to be understood as simply as an immortal soul, or was it far more complex and left people a little bit bewildered?
Well, it certainly left subsequent scholarship a little bit bewildered. But I think if I try to think my way back, the emphasis there on God's saints is particularly important.
Okay.
And remember what I said, that the Ikhwan always have one eye on the next rung of the ladder. Mm-hmm. So what I think they are doing is drawing a picture of the lowest level of human being, the mistreatment of animals,
Yep.
being evidence of the fact. Now, it's not that the brethren are particularly eco-warriors. It is that the way that they see it is that by treating animals like this, or mistreating animals in this manner, we are being ungrateful and unthankful to God for God's generosity. Mm-hmm. Now, the word in Arabic for unbelief, kufr, also has connotations of ingratitude. So by mistreating God's creation in the way in which men have so manifestly been doing, they are in fact acting in a way that's tantamount to unbelief. And what the Ikhwan want the reader, I think, to do is to take the step back and say, well, that kind of behaviour belongs to the lowest rung of human beings. Yeah. It typifies ingratitude to God. I'm going to be grateful to God for his blessings and strive to rise to the next step in the ladder. And my ultimate destination is going to be the saints of God at the top of the ladder, because that will then put me in the threshold where I will be able to aspire through spiritual exercises to commune with the angels.
Right, I'm just digging for the quote that kind of summarises that. The highest animals verge with the lowest rank of human beings,
Yes.
and the highest rank of humans with the lowest of the angels.
Yes.
That's at the beginning of this Risala, isn't it?
Yes.
And so, but you've just said that comes with spiritual exercises.
Yes.
But when you listen to that range of virtues of that ideal man who finally speaks on behalf of the humans effectively, it's not just spiritual, is it? He had all sorts of, I don't know, culture and manners and beliefs, and
Yes.
is intellectual training part of this aspiration?
Yeah, very much so. The 52, 54 epistles are the intellectual training that you need. I mean, you cannot, by virtue of being born in Egypt, be Iraqi by birth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no.
We're dealing with, as it were, an ideal or a fabulous human being as part of the fable. That from the passage that I quoted. So I don't think that the Ikhwan want us to aspire to have all of those traits which wouldn't necessarily we'd be able to have if we came from Granada or from Cairo or wherever by virtue of our birth.
No.
That's to be put aside, because that belongs to the lowest rank of the human being. Mm-hmm. What they want us to do is through following their definition of knowledge and following the exercises, the mental exercises that each of these epistles presents us with, is to ascend to a level where we have, as it were, almost finished our training. Now, reading through the 52, 54 epistles will not give us the insight that we need to make the next transition. We can only get that through actually going and talking to an adept, a master. So this is all propedeutic, as they say. This is all,
Preparatory.
yes, it's a preparatory exercise.
Yeah.
Through following these paradoxes, these thought experiments, these conundra, we are recalibrating our brain, we're retuning our mental apparatus, so that once we've finished the beginner's course at the end of the 54 epistles, we can then move on to the next level of training, which is joining in a majlis, a gathering with a spiritual leader. And the Ikhwan do not give us the information about that spiritual training.
There's so many levels then of training, because there's the 52 or 54 epistles.
Yes.
But each one is guided through different levels of training, right?
Yes.
And then they're all in order, so they form a curriculum.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
that's only training to get to the next step. But then that is just like, it's another hierarchy, it's another ladder.
Of course it is. Yes.
Right.
And you can't slip from the ladder.
And then what happens?
Then you have to start again. I think was how it would be. So it's not what I'm trying to say there is your attainment of the next level is dependent upon your continued application
Yeah.
to that level and to get beyond. You do not rest.
Yeah.
And you can get to a higher level of understanding or gnosis, and that might be the only time you do it. It might never happen again.
So you have to take every single step very seriously.
Yeah, and then you have to reapply yourself in the hope that
Yeah.
you will get that insight once again. It's an extremely powerful tool for encouraging students to continue on this path of enlightenment.
And continually engaging.
Yes.
Well, before we get to the enlightenment claim, maybe we should just touch on what this curriculum is actually.
How it's constructed.
Yeah, what it covers and how. What is the program of study, as it were? Because we're getting close to something that I do know about, which is very exciting, which is classification of knowledge.
Yes.
in
Yes.
medieval Arabic philosophy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you agree, but there's a lot of this that is very standard for the time, isn't there?
Yes, I mean the inspiration, the model that is behind all of this is the classification of knowledge, which the Arabs translated from the Greeks, and which tended to be a definition of philosophy rather than knowledge.
Yes.
For the ancient Greeks in late antiquity, the definition of knowledge was effectively the definition of philosophy.
Yeah.
And those texts are very much at the heart of this project. But what the brethren do is that they take it in a much more comprehensive way. It's a lot more discursive than the definitions of knowledge that we normally get in the tradition.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it remains effectively a definition of knowledge, even though it's one that has been, as it were, turbocharged or something, right?
Yeah. Well, if we think about it as a curriculum, it of course starts with the training that gets translated as elementary.
Yes,
I called them training, I think.
So the Arabic word is also the word for mathematics, riyadiyya, and I think it just means training. One could elementary. The point behind elementary, the scholars refer to them as elementary, is that you can't progress unless you have them.
Yeah.
So it's what you start with.
Yeah.
These are training exercises, let's call it that.
Eventually they go into the Western tradition as the trivium, right?
Yes.
Which doesn't mean trivial, it means three.
Yes.
And so we've got, what have we got? Grammar?
Yeah, grammar,
Arithmetic?
geography, arithmetic,
Yeah.
The sort of practical sciences, yes.
Yeah. And then another bunch of letters on the sciences of revelation.
Yeah, so these are connected with how uh, the, the Islamic law and how the Quranic, the Islamic sciences that were developed to understand and study the Quran are to be integrated into the system. So, for those who do not follow the program of the Ikhwan, of the Brethren, these would be the end in themselves, right? So, one would study Islamic law to become, for example, a mujtahid, an expert that could pronounce. But for the Ikhwan, they are so inclusive and so they want to incorporate all knowledge. They do not. There was a tradition at one point of thinking of them as Neoplatonic thinkers who used religion as a smokescreen to avoid criticism.
Yeah.
But that's to misunderstand the point, I think.
Yes.
So the Quran is absolutely central to every single epistle.
Yeah.
And for them, as I said earlier on in our discussion, it's a both and universe, not an either or.
Yeah. So yes, you study in order. So we've had the revelation, legal sciences, and then what comes?
Then we get the sciences that deal with ultimate reality,
Right.
philosophical reality. And they comprise advanced mathematics, logic, and the branches of learning that can only be known through the application of reason. That's the intellectual.
Right. That doesn't
Sciences.
sound so different from mathematical and logical to a modern understanding.
Yes, I know. It's very difficult to pin down exactly what one might mean by that.
Okay. So what comes next in the curriculum of study that the rasa'il points out?
So after the sciences of revelation, they move on to the philosophical sciences, the sciences that deal with true reality. And as we remember from previously, true reality is not the world that we perceive around us. It's the batin, it's the hidden, the invisible, the esoteric world. Now, these sciences comprise very loosely mathematical, logical, but then the most important one, the divine sciences.
Right.
These sciences which allow us to understand the true nature of Godhead, of what God is. And that will also involve a certain degree of training, not only of the soul, but also of the body. So, how one spends one's day, what one avoids eating, and so on. So, it's very much a holistic program for, as it were, detoxing the soul so that you can then allow the soul to employ the faculty of reason, because that's what we're going to need. Reason properly applied in order to understand the Godhead.
So it's comprehensive in so many different ways. It's trying to sketch out the whole of knowledge as it stands.
Yes.
But it's also comprehensive for a human, mind,
Yes.
body, soul.
Yes. Yes.
It's pretty ambitious.
Very, very ambitious. It's almost as if the Ikhwan are asking the reader to reorganize how they live their life.
Right. And their brain.
Yes.
And their
but-
soul.
Yes, but you can't get the brain and the soul without the life.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, a healthy body, healthy mind. But without the healthy body, the mind will not be able to deal with all these conundra and paradoxes and everything that we were talking about. And although there are these four different divisions of sciences, the Ikhwan divide them three different levels of sciences. They divide them into four different categories because it can get very, very confusing with the brethren as to how they put all of this together in the detail. So it's almost as if they get so carried away with classification,
Yeah.
or one of their number gets so carried away with classification that they then become guilty of over-classifying.
Yeah. It's a temptation.
And because the corpus as it exists is not uniform, it's very messy. There are different classifications of how to look at these things in some epistles from others. So there's not it's not a consistent classification scheme in its details throughout all 54.
Right.
And I think that we might perhaps think about whether this work is in fact the result of multiple authorship, of repeated authorship over time. I'm not 100% sure, and it's probably worth just briefly discussing it. But one of the great conundra is that in one of the early epistles where the Ikhwan set out their stall, it's not a stall that they follow in every single detail. So they say, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to look at this, this, and this. So they give a kind of table of contents for the collection as a whole. But the collection as a whole doesn't map exactly the table of contents. Now, that's not unusual in texts from the classical Arabic tradition. Quite often, there are cross-references, but as the work has been transmitted and so on, the cross-references might be to parts that have fallen out or whatever. So it's not completely unusual that they have this very detailed table of contents that the work doesn't actually conform to. But it might be an indication that the table of contents refers to a version of the collection that no longer survives.
That we don't have.
Yes.
But could it just be that they changed their minds as they wrote, or is that not a possibility? But if I think about essay plans and then the final essay that I write,
Yes.
they never map.
No, this is true, but I think before the brethren put reed pen to paper, they had already worked out every bit of the hierarchy of the universe that they were wanting to set down.
Of course.
You would expect for a body of authors who are as obsessed with classification
That
as
they had
were.
it classified.
Yes, they would have had it classified.
Yeah.
I suspect that it's either transmission or over the centuries, or the fact that the version of the work that referred to has been adapted or lost or rewritten.
Now, we have already mentioned such a wide array of influences and nods and quotes and things, Pythagoras, Neoplatonism.
Yes.
There's so many strands here. And honestly, every single one could probably be an episode because
Yes.
it's all fascinating and useful for understanding the whole. But I wondered, instead of digging into all of them, can we actually come to any conclusion about what the writers really believed themselves?
I can't, personally. A lot of scholars and colleagues have tried and are trying.
Yeah.
But also a lot of pious believers have particular views of the corpus. It's one of those works that speak in so many different ways to so many different people that a lot of individuals have very, very strongly held beliefs about what the work is.
Yeah.
Coming from my background in textual studies and my familiarity with working with manuscripts and so on, and as someone who is not necessarily a believer, I just see it differently. But I could try to give an idea of the kind of things that have been said about what these the brethren may have been. And in order to do that, I think we have to begin with some of the theories that have been postulated about their identity.
Okay.
Because what I love about the work is its sheer success. the brethren set out not to identify themselves, and they have been phenomenally successful. So many centuries later,
Yeah, we
still
have no idea.
And of course, scholarship, like nature, hates a vacuum, and the anonymity of the brethren acts as a vacuum, and it just attracts scholars who are desperate to fill in that vacuum.
Who were they?
Yes, who were they? And many theories have been put forward.
Go on. Give us some.
Some of them. So let's begin with the earliest, with the latest attempt to date it.
Okay.
And the latest attempt dates the work to 894 of the Common Era.
Oh, wow.
And it's the engineer of this dating links it to a philosopher by the name of as-Safa, who was a pupil of the first Arabic philosopher Al-Kindi. Now, one of the problems with this identification is that we don't really have any works by Sarakhsi to survive. So we have a vacuum.
Another vacuum.
Appealing to a vacuum.
That's quite useful.
But the identification is based on the mathematical character of the corpus, and there is some textual evidence linking some of the corpus with a work on arithmetic, some quotes of which have survived by Sarakhsi. So based on that linkage, the architect of this identification has then associated the whole corpus.
I'm going to call that tenuous. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's imaginative and ambitious.
And it's not going to be possible to falsify that one, is it?
Not unless we discover more work by Sarakhsi.
Right. So that's not massively satisfying, I'd say.
Yeah.
But it does take it back another 100 years. So
yes, it makes it 100 years earlier than what is normally seen as the activity. Yes, as the florid, as the activity of the brethren.
So what's the evidence for that? For that kind of level of activity,
was thought at one point to be really quite secure. So that argument says that the work is prior to 985 of the Common Era, because two individuals within the tradition, one Abu Hayyan al-Tawhidi, who was an author who died in 1023, and a theologian, Abdul Jabbar, who died in 1025. They both refer to a group from Basra who were members of the entourage of a secretary, and so a high-ranking bureaucrat.
Yeah.
And Al-Tawhidi names these individuals who are members of this group. He refers to both their beliefs and to an anonymous work of 50 epistles.
Right.
And he says that they composed it on philosophy. And that seemed, when it was argued to have settled the matter.
Yeah.
I think most scholars would probably accept that as accurate. So that would put it to prior to 985.
Right.
So late 10th century. And much to as I read it and look at the ideas from my knowledge, there does seem to be a significant proportion of the work of the Ikhwan's, with the Brethren's work, that sounds to my ear as if it comes from the late 10th century.
Now, is that the intuition of decades of reading the sources, or do you have specific things to pick up on?
No, that's just one of those hunches. It's nothing more than a hunch. I mean, there is a lot that doesn't fit that hunch, but there are bits when I read it and I think, That sounds to me as if it belongs in this milieu.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So, oh yeah, sorry. Is there more
yes.
more theories? Go on then.
The latest one, which is getting some traction, sees in the work a Spanish presence.
Now, this is really new, this theory, isn't it?
Yes.
It's pretty exciting.
Yes.
Go on, why is it Spanish?
So, one of the interesting things about the study of Al-Andalus, i.e. What we refer to as Islamic Spain and Portugal, in the last 30 or 40 years, is the editing and publishing of a number of works that we didn't have before. Right. So there's been a lot of activity in recuperating the Andalusi past. Previously, it was the study of Al-Andalus was confined to Spanish scholars who were more interested in the issue of what they referred to as convivencia, the ability of Muslims, Jews and Christians to live together in harmony, obviously very much tied to the Spanish Civil War,
right,
and to debates in Spain. But those debates those issues are, while still alive in Spain, they are no longer the ones that dominate scholarship, both about Spain, Islamic Spain, and by scholars who are Spanish. There's also been an acknowledgement that you can't understand Muslim Spain and Portugal without understanding Morocco and North Africa. So the incorporation of the Maghreb of North Africa into this cultural, intellectual, geographical, historical zone, that's really been one of the cutting edges of Islamic studies and history in the last 40 years. And what that has meant is that more texts have been published that were hitherto unknown. And it turns out that in one of those texts, there's a reference to the rasa'il, the epistles, of a certain Maslama ibn Qasim al-Qurtubi, and he introduced the corpus of these epistles to Al-Andalus, Islamic Spain and Portugal.
What date, sorry?
So that would give us prior to 936.
Prior to 936, that's pushing it back a lot.
Yes. And we also know about this Al-Qurtubi, that he's probably the author of at least the comprehensive epistle, the 53rd one that I mentioned at the beginning, possibly of the super comprehensive epistle, but not enough work has been done on it, because I think maybe I should mention this earlier for our listeners. The work on the Ikhwan is very much ongoing.
Yeah.
So there's a project at the Institute of Ismaili Studies to actually provide a reliable text of the work, which we haven't had up to this point.
So, yeah, that is quite amazing to think about, because they're major figures in the tradition, right?
Yes.
So this is we still don't have the 52 epistles in an agreed.
Yes, and I'm not sure that we'll ever have them in an agreed form, but what we will have is the tools with which to compare the different versions. I mean, the project of which I'm a part at the Institute of Ismaili Studies is trying to use a representative number of manuscripts, but there are over 100 manuscripts of the rasa'il of the brethren that are in existence, and we're probably using 20 to 25.
Even that's a huge amount of work.
Yeah, and there are probably many in private collections,
right?
Because of the way in which the Ikhwan were adopted by one branch of Islam and kept for private study or for the training of adepts. So there's possibly 150, 200 manuscripts in existence of the work.
That's enormous for this type of work. I don't know
Yes,
if people really understand that sometimes these fundamental texts in the tradition, we're working from fragments of maybe held in 3 different places, and the fragments are of different parts.
Yes. And the fragments may exist as quotations in later works.
Other books,
Yes. So the only other work that has such a plethora of manuscripts might be the Kalila wa Dimna that we referred to earlier, the
Right.
animal fable.
Right.
Possibly the collected works of the most famous poet in Arabic, Mutanabi. I think there may be 600 of them in existence.
Oh, wow. Yes. But not many things.
No, there aren't many works that exist in so many copies. And this Spanish, this Andalusi individual, Al-Qurtubi, we do know that he also composed other works within the esoteric tradition, particularly with the speciality in alchemy. So there is some developing evidence that at some stage in its genesis, this corpus left the Islamic East, went to the Islamic West, was possibly edited by Al-Qurtubi.
Who then?
Possibly gave it one of its final shapes.
Yeah.
And then the work pretty much disappears until we get the earliest manuscript, which dates from 1182. So the work is effectively invisible until 1182.
To us.
Yes. So if we say prior to 985, then that's 200 years in which it's invisible. If we say 936, 250 years in which it's invisible. And what's really interesting is that in this manuscript from 1182, it refers to the brethren as Sufis.
Right. We have been skirting around the Sufi claim.
Yes.
The whole conversation.
Yes, we have. Part of the reason for the identification of them as Sufis, one argument is that it makes it more acceptable to a non-Shi'i readership, because we haven't mentioned the fact that the collection is very, very heavily Shi'i and not Sunni. In this prioritization of the batin, the esoteric over the exoteric. And so the other reason is that by 1182, the type of Sufism which exists in the Islamic world is a philosophical Sufism with heavy Neoplatonic elements in it. And it's not that far a step removed from the Brethren.
Right.
At all. So I wasn't surprised when I looked at that manuscript.
Yeah.
And saw them referred to as Sufis.
I mean, we probably need to explain why it's so obvious that you know, the Neoplatonism, correct me if I'm wrong here, because this isn't my area, but both Neoplatonism and Sufism have this idea of ladders of spiritual attainment.
Yes.
And both of them, I think, incorporate angels, in fact.
Yes.
And so we're getting from two extremely different traditions the sort of idea of the improvement of the soul, right?
Yes.
And getting to the final attainment is communion with the divine.
Yes.
Sufism, God. Neoplatonism, it's more
the intellect.
Yeah, but it's a divine consciousness permeating the whole universe.
Yes.
So similar sort of structure, right?
Yes.
So it kind of just makes perfect sense from what you've already said about ladders, about exercises, mind, body and soul improvement.
Yes. By the 12th century, 1185, when this manuscript is dated, Sufism had undergone a radical Neoplatonizing synthesis. And that synthesis, interestingly, emerges from a thinker also from Al-Andalus.
Who's this?
That would be Ibn al-Arabi, the one of the most influential figures in how all of the currents of Islamic thought, the religious, the philosophical, the mystical, were combined into this synthesis of a very, very unique appeal. And according to one scholar, it is the single most defining feature of what we might refer to as the the Islamic world from the 12th century, probably up until today, this combination of philosophical Sufism with religious belief in a harmonious unit. And that is down to Ibn al-Arabi, and it's probably not... It's a nice thought to entertain that perhaps the importation of the corpus into Al-Andalus and its dissemination in intellectual circles in Al-Andalus gave Ibn al-Arabi some of the guidance or the sense of what might actually be possible.
Right.
Because our brethren are often thought of as on the periphery of the mainstream.
Right.
So what I'm suggesting here is this new idea that perhaps they are somehow one of the tributaries of what became the mainstream.
The mainstream, because Ibn Arabi's gone into all sorts of cultures.
Yes.
As the epitome
everywhere from
of...
the Balkans to Bengal, as one scholar refers to the Balkans to Bengal complex.
Oh.
This is the defining feature.
Amazing. And it came through that Andalusian tradition.
Yes, and possibly our corpus of 52 to 54 epistles contributed to it.
I have a special fondness for Ibn Arabi, not just because of the incredible texts he's left behind, which I've found, I've read a lot over years and years and years, but I lived in Damascus in the building next to Sheikh Muhyiddin Mosque where he is buried.
Okay.
So
Nice.
his tomb is there, and coach loads of Iranian pilgrims used to come every Friday. To give a sense of them and the corpus and its afterlife.
Yes.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much for downloading this podcast.